Hello and welcome to the Bald Ambition podcast. I am your still very bald host, Mookie Spitz, and the ones with a whole lot of ambition today and in a subject which is critical to everyone's well-being are Roger Washington, MD, and Scarlet Nickhol, who is an MPP. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for having us, Mookie. You should
Yeah.
be bold and beautiful, bald and beautiful.
Bald and beautiful, baby. Thanks to Telly Savalas,
Yeah,
Michael Jordan.
absolutely.
I stand on the shoulders of bald giants.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
And you two
Doing it well.
represent, and I'll let you go into the detail of the Sleep to Live Well Foundation. And as I understand it, at least initially, you have a tripartite mission, which is to raise awareness around sleep challenges, and also their opportunities, providing valuable tools and resources to help people sleep better, especially children when they're growing up and learning how to sleep, ideally, sleep well. And you're building an ecosystem around sleep awareness and sleep improvement, if I got it right. And I just want to say that sleep is ubiquitous in its need and absence. We live in a crazy kind of time right now with unbelievable absorption of content. We're being bombarded by information, especially on our screens, nonstop. I read recently a statistic that we check our phones on average 500 times a day. And we're up late staring at our screens with the blue being drilled into our eyeballs and brains, and that can't be too helpful to a good night's sleep. And our culture, read the newspaper. There's so much turmoil and strife culturally and politically, and this is having an impact on our sleep. And I believe one of the points we want to get across is that it's not just that all this is having an impact on sleep, but sleep issues have a huge impact on the rest of our lives. So with that, I would love to pass the microphone to you guys and tell us a little bit about yourselves, your organization, and most significantly, what can listeners get out of this need to sleep?
Well, thank you, Mookie. I'm a family practice physician by training. I went to Stanford's medical school in the residency program, and I'm a fellow in the American Academy of Family Physicians. I was recognized because of the teaching that I do in family medicine. I was at Stanford when Dr. Dement was doing his groundbreaking work in sleep physiology, and he had a very popular course. I read his book about sleep, The Promise of Sleep, and it impacted me greatly. My goal as a physician has always been to be holistic in my approach to help people to be healthy. I tried to integrate the different problems that they have to come up with a plan that would help them to achieve better health. But as it turns out, I don't know if you're aware, but in medicine, we don't even have a definition of what it means to be healthy. What we do is characterize disease and disorder and then find a way to monetize it. But we don't really have a definition of health. But that's how I start, with wellness and health. I learned along the way that wellness could be defined by a feeling. And what I mean by that, it's the feeling that you get when you're with your family and maybe your kids are getting along and cooperating with one another, and you notice it and think, wow, this is great. And you take that moment in and you feel gratified. You don't feel hungry. You don't feel thirsty. You're not worried about the past. You're not thinking about the future. You're in the moment. And in that moment, you feel well. That feeling is what I would refer to as a feeling of health. And my goal as a physician is to help people to have that every day. You see, Mookie, we've been lied to. The term euphoria, people think it means elated or some kind of special, extraordinary feeling. But EU in Greek It means normal. Hyper is too much and hypo is too little. EU is the feeling you have when you're not suffering from anything.
Yeah.
That feeling that you get when you're near the ocean and you smell the air, or you're on a hike and you say to yourself, this is a good moment. Life is good. You have a sense of perspective. That feeling is normal. I asked one of my patients about that feeling. He said, Doc, I bought in. I've been your patient for a long time now. That feeling is called healthy and well rested, and I have it every day. Why are we talking about that? And I said, well, I'm just checking in. You see, Mookie, what I've learned over the years is that, as you said, many people have stress, and we've thought as a paradigm that stress is what causes disease. But I don't think that's actually the case. Because what I've noticed, the observation I've made, is that when people are most stressed, that's not when they become ill. They become ill when the stress lets down. People don't get sick, it seems to me, when they're very busy trying to get something done, when they have a deadline. The can-do people I wrote about in my book, Lack of Sufficient Sleep Matters. These people make up their mind they're going to get something done, and they get extra energy to get it done. And they full speed ahead. But then when it's done, that's when they slow down and become ill. So I said to myself, well, if stress is greatest, that's when, if it's causing illness, that's when they should get sick. But they got sick afterwards. And I realized that what was happening is that by sacrificing their sleep to get things done, they compromised their immune system. They did what I call energy borrowing.
Right.
I talk to patients all the time, years and years of talking to patients and realizing that there are many people who, when they need to get something done, they have this increased experience of energy that they're going to get it done. And I call it accelerated. You've probably not heard of that acronym, accelerated. It means their minds become more active, they become more confident and creative, they feel more energy to get things done. The L stands for they can get by with less food and less sleep, work right through lunch, don't even miss it. The second E is for entrepreneurial. They put things together in a novel way to make their outcome come about. The R is for Randy. It means that they're more interested in pleasurable things. The T is for Titanic. They feel more stronger. And the third E is for entertaining and enthusiastic. They become more charismatic to carry the day, more of what it takes to be a leader, to get things done. And the D in accelerated is for determined. If you ask these people, these can-do people, people like firemen and policemen and soldiers and mothers, single moms, are you stressed? They say, you know what? It's just what I got to get. It's what I got to do. I don't know about your stress. I just got to get it done. Just stay out of my way and let me get this done. And what I've experienced is that when they're getting it done, they don't feel stressed. You can't really tell somebody they're stressed when they don't feel that way. But the point is, when they finish, they become ill. I saw a phenomenon like Blue Death, they call it, when firemen and policemen, when they retire in their 60s, they don't do well.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you correctly, we tend to assume it's a zero sum game, right? That we put in all of this energy, and then by putting in that energy and the intensity, that compromises our health and immune system. When, if I'm hearing you correctly, the compromise that we often make with our busy lives is in getting less sleep and inadequate sleep. And then there's a debt to nature due, and illness and many of our problems stem not from the intensity of all of this drive and all of this compensation for the madness, but simply the repercussion in our lives of not making sufficient time for a good night's sleep. Am I reading you
You
correctly?
characterized that very well. You see,
Right.
I'm going to challenge you, Mookie, and say that the times haven't changed. It was the best at times. It was the worst at times. People had these, if you have family, you have stress. If you have no family, you have stress. If you have a job, if you have no job, if you rent, if you own, if you have parents, if you have children, there's always been stress. The idea is that stress, basically trauma, means that your basic physiologic needs are not being met.
Right.
And those needs are not just physical in the sense of Maslow's pyramid, where we need food, water, nutrition, we need sleep, air, but we also need safety. We need to feel loved. We need to feel part of a community, to express ourselves. The idea is we all experience this trauma every day. And the question is whether or not you can let go of that trauma to then go to sleep and be able to become regenerated. What I've also noticed, and I would like to share with you because I think it's extremely important, the people who sleep well, people who love sleep, who venerate sleep, they characteristically live to 80 and 100 years old without medications,
Yeah,
without chronic
the good
diseases.
nappers are going to outlive all of us, right?
And by good nappers, I mean consistent nappers. In other words, if they're part of their ecosystem is to sleep every day at a certain time for a certain length, then if that's what they do, they make up their sleep debt on a regular basis and they don't get sick.
Yeah.
Now,
So it sounds like sleep is integral to that Maslow foundational pyramid of human health and wellness. I'm Hungarian, and there's an expression which is egészségedre, which literally translated means to your wholeness. So we don't say to your health, we say to your wholeness. And that's similar to your euphoria comment, which is just the
exactly.
even keel, like be whole, eat, be self-actualized, but also sleep. And now, Scarlet, if that's a great philosophical, pragmatic foundation for your organization, which is sleep is vital, people aren't getting enough, how is the organization helping solve some of these challenges and educate people about what the doc is saying about sleep, nap, chill out? Don't compromise your sleep to do other things because it's going to catch up to you. What are you guys doing to get that message across?
Well, one of our primary missions is to educate. And we released a report, our annual report now on the state of sleep wellness in July. And what we did was to take a look at all of the studies that have been undertaken for the last 2 decades about the importance of sleep, and the alarms that have been sounded about how the lack of sufficient sleep are actually at the root cause of a lot of our illnesses. Well, all of our illnesses, according to Dr. Washington, has a correlation to the quality of your sleep. And we also said, well, what has happened since over those last 2 decades, when we are now aware of how vital it is, and how like 300 million adults and children in the country are suffering. They're at risk of these related illnesses. Why hasn't anything changed? Well, something has changed. There has been the emergence of sleep hygiene with all the gadgets to track your sleep, the pillows to keep you from snoring, all of the methods
The
that
apps. There's a
the
million
app,
apps. Right?
yes,
With
yes,
the rings, the bracelets, the
everything,
headbands,
yeah,
right? The glasses,
the
everything.
glasses, everything that can be monetized.
Right, right.
But what has happened is the human behavior has been removed from the equation. So we're still falling into habits of resisting sleep. So we're bringing that to the attention through our report. And also, Mookie, what we're trying to get across is, what are we talking about when we talk about sleep? Most people think that sleep equates to rest, right? Well, the only thing that's resting when you sleep are your muscles. And then there's 6 biological functions that occur only when you're sleeping. And I'm going to read them to you. There's physical growth and repair. How important is that to children? There's the cognitive function, which we now are so attuned to as it relates to Alzheimer's. There's that cleansing of the brain that goes on. The emotional regulation, which is where the depression comes in when that starts to unravel. Energy regulation, of course, you know, that's the one we're most attuned to. If you're not sleeping, you're going to be tired the next day. But then there's the cellular detox, which is associated with longevity. And then balancing the stress and the trauma. Like Dr. Washington said, trauma and stress is not new. But what's new is that we're not returning to our natural source for what we have available to us to help us handle this stress, to help us balance the stress. Somehow sleep has become optional, you know, in our life.
Big time. We have time for everything except sleep, because I think as a society, we're under the notion that we're not doing anything.
Exactly.
And to your point, these 6 vital functions are not only doing something, but enabling us to function and for children to grow and mature the way they should.
And they don't happen unless you sleep.
Unless you sleep. And you and I were talking offline earlier how all animals sleep.
Yes.
Like spiders in their web.
The hummingbirds.
Hummingbirds. Giant alligators in the bayou are sleeping and dreaming. So it's built into life itself, sleeping.
Even plants sleep. I want to point out to you, our culture is one where we focus on what is active. We're focused on being entertained and having experiences that excite. We look at a tree and we see the foliage so robust and beautiful. And yet the foliage is actually expendable, right? They lose their leaves, but it's the roots that keep the tree alive and give it the ability to sustain. But we don't focus on what goes on below the earth, that what we can't see. So we tend to be disdainful of that experience. But if we think about being awake, we think about living with regard to how we feel in the moment, how we're evolving, how we have an opportunity to love and to be loved. I think most of us would want to say that is what we want to be a large part of our living. What we end up doing is going around trying to create experiences that make us feel something that are basically a substitute for that living experience.
Yeah. So essentially, if I'm hearing both of you correctly, we've been focusing on many of the wrong things in the sense of what's really ailing us. So throughout human history, life has always been stressful. And even from a social Darwinian vantage point, life is a struggle. We need to survive. We're built to kind of fight it out.
To overcome.
But we're also built to sleep. And we're putting kind of the chicken and the egg. We're mixing things up, that our stress leads to bad sleep. But bad sleep ultimately is the real culprit here in terms of reverberating through every aspect of our life. If we don't sleep well, it's as bad as if we're not eating, we're not drinking, and we don't have a roof over our heads. It's that fundamental.
It's that basic. In 1900, the average lifespan was 47 years old.
Right.
And what has changed greatly is that we do sleep much more than we did in years past. In years past, nobody slept. Everyone was afraid and traumatic. It was uncomfortable. Can you imagine how cold it was, and the beds, the animals, the insects? It was horrible. But now things have improved. But unfortunately, if we take the example of children who are the most robust sleepers and who are actually growing, they sleep because they feel safe. And as parents, one of our main goals is to make sure that we take care of their needs. Are they dry? Are they fed? Are they have enough water? Are they cold? Are they comfortable? And now let's help them to sleep. Are you afraid? Oh, let me make you comfortable. Everything is okay. Trust me, it's going to be fine. When we feel safe, we can sleep. We can sleep well. What people don't understand, I'd like to give you some insight, is that anyone who's ever set the clock and woke up a few minutes before the alarm should know that by your mind, with your ego, you can control the autonomic nervous system. So if you don't feel safe, you'll sleep on guard. And then many of the things that Scarlett was mentioning that happen during sleep, they won't happen, because instead you'll be awake, partly listening, and won't be getting as much of the deep sleep that supports resilience. So how you think about the end of the day, how you think about letting go of the trauma and the difficulty and allowing yourself to feel safe and sleep well will determine the character of the sleep you get and will determine the kind of life you can expect to have the next day.
Now, I had a phase in life, and I think it was related to a romantic breakup, because that always hits. I tend to sleep well. My problem with sleep is not sleeping enough because I feel I should be doing other things. But if left to my own devices, I've been blessed with good sleep. So I went through a period of time of extreme insomnia because I was in this emotional crisis. And I put an announcement out there on my social medias for advice about insomnia. And it seemed out of the woodwork, dozens of people that I know, friends, family, colleagues, sent me sometimes public posts on comments, but direct messages. I suffer from horrible insomnia for years. This is what I do. And it was eye-opening to me that a major problem, a fissure in public health, is insomnia in whatever form that takes. And I bring that up as the looking glass version of exactly what you guys are talking about, which is insomnia and sleep problems plague so many people, more people than you would even imagine, based on my small little personal survey there. How do you account for that? And I'm sure many people listening to this are listening because they have sleep problems. They're seeing what this podcast is about, and whether they're my fans or whether they stumble across this podcast, they're looking for answers. They're already suffering as adults from sleeplessness or sleep disorders in some format.
Yeah.
What can you tell them, and what does this say about our attitude towards sleep?
Well, I'd like to interject at this point something that we should all pause and hopefully embrace. Sleeping is a natural phenomenon. Everyone has the ability, the capacity to respond to their body's need for sleep. And our mission is not to deal with the illnesses of sleep, such as insomnia, sleep apnea. Dr. Washington treats that in his exam room, in his practice. He also treats prevention as well. But if you've gotten to the point where you're falling into these states of illness and disease related to sleep, then you've bypassed this relationship with your body, and you've disassociated your connection with the natural ability to sleep. And this is where the foundation is focusing its resources.
Okay, this is a great distinction, and that's why I wanted to bring it up fairly early in our conversation too, because you've got chronic sleep issues suffered by millions of people. And just to add to that, millions of people, many of whom are listening now, are medicated on a regular basis for sleep. And you know, again, begging the question and preaching to the choir to Doc Washington, this is a real issue. So I think focusing on what your organization does and how it does it is an important point to make. And not only clarify, but show how the two ends complement each other.
Yeah. So before I let Dr. Washington bring in his wisdom to help folks start to unravel their dependence on, the medication, I just want to say that paying attention to your body and what your body is asking for is the first step in our practices of sleep wellness. It's the thing that we embed in our materials, in our children's book. Your body will signal to you when it needs rest. Are you paying attention? Even if you're on medication, are you abdicating your attention to your body to the medication? Oh, I don't have to listen to my body now because I'm going to take my medication later and I'm going to go to sleep. Well, what we're teaching children in our children's book is to listen for the signals, listen for the cues, listen for the clues. Are you yawning?
Good sign.
Are you pulling your ear? Are you sucking your thumb? Are you scratching your head? Is your head drooping? That's the sign that sleep magic is near. This is what Dr. Bedtime is telling the children. So the adults, are you ignoring the yawns? Are you ignoring the head drooping? Oh, it happens at 8 o'clock. That's much too early to get ready for bed. So I just want to say that our focus is on sleep wellness. It's on prevention so that you can get in sync with your body, start to pay attention when it's calling out to help you get the rest and restoration, the healing, all of the things that you need before you get to the point when you have to get on medication.
I think that's a very important point. And your focus on children, I think, is integral to the mission and the implementation, which is teaching people great habits early on so that they not only know them growing up and into them, but what you're saying is when you're young, sleep is particularly vital for growth.
Yes.
And for becoming an adult devoid of sleep issues. So if you teach the kids early on, you're laying that foundation of the health and wellness foundation in a way that's most beneficial.
And the payoff for it. So Dr. Washington, how do you address a feeling of hopelessness if a patient is saying, I can't sleep without this medication, and yet they want to sleep? How have you dealt with this to help bring sleep wellness more into the picture?
Well, Mookie, one of the reasons we focus on the children is it's somewhat strategic. As a family doctor, I've noticed over the years that parents will do for their children what they otherwise wouldn't be able to do for themselves. I've seen fathers quit smoking because they wanted to be a good example to their children. And as hard as it was on their own, they never would have done it. They'd have suffered it out. But my point is that when parents start to pay attention to what they can do to help their children sleep well, then they get in touch with the natural ways that we learn to sleep, as Scarlet was hinting at. I wanted to say, to give you some insight as to what I do in the office when I'm trying to help people with I have to reframe their approach to sleeping. And I remind people, since you gravitate to that which you secretly love most, you say you want to sleep, but yet I see you with your phone at 9 o'clock looking at videos, but you said you wanted to sleep and you were tired back at 8 o'clock and you pushed it back. No, another video.
It'll help me relax, Doc. If I keep watching YouTube, go down the doom scroll hole, then it'll relax me, right? No.
Well, that's because what people want in that situation is they want to fall asleep without work. They want to sleep to come take them, but they don't realize that the type of sleep they're going to get as a result will be broken and fragmented because they've disrupted their circadian rhythm. I wanted to say, with regard to the experience that you had, We all have traumas. You described the trauma that you had, your emotional experience that didn't go the way you would have hoped. What I would suggest, and only you know, is that very often when people deal with a difficult situation, they want to try to solve it themselves. So rather than submit to their need for sleep that evening, they're going to sit there and figure this thing out.
Right.
If only I woulda, and I shoulda, and I couldn't, and what the, and it's never going to work. But the point is, we were taught that there are 5 stages of loss. There's the denial. What? No. The president? No. What do you mean no? The radio never gets it wrong. What are you talking about? No. That's how strong denial is. And then, but it could it be that could we just befriend the bargaining? And then there's the anger. Oh, I should have told Dad to go to the doctor earlier. It's all my fault that I told him he should take his medication. No, it's his fault that he didn't take his Right, the anger, and then the depression. And the point is that only when we submit to sleep, that we do the cognitive work that we need to do, we have that terrible experience, what they call a cathartic experience. Freud said he would have them on his couch and it would take months and months and months and months and months, years maybe, but eventually they would have a terrible experience and they'd come back the next day and they'd say, I feel better. That's because they went home and they slept more. And they reorganized the way they understand the world, but they had to submit and let go and let sleep do what it needs to do in order for you to see the world the way it really is. It's okay. She loved me. We had a good time. It's probably best. Move on. We'll do better.
The eureka moment. Creative people cite that all the time, whether it's the carbon ring that Bernoulli saw in his mind's eye just on a whim, or people dreaming the solution to their problem, or to your point, even just subtly the sleep giving them an opportunity to naturally sort things out, to calm down and let things pass.
That's the way it works. When people say that therapy, the joke is it takes forever, and when it doesn't work, the therapist says, well, the patient has to want to change, making it their fault that the system didn't work. When in truth, what it really, when I observed it, what works is when the person sleeps extra, then they rework the way they understand the world. No, my father really did love me. All those things that he did do. Why did I discount those? Why was I so focused on the red truck I didn't get for Christmas? But all the sacrifice, the double duty, the practices he took me to, he loved me, right?
Yeah, gratitude.
As children, we have a perverse way of understanding the world, and we put it together at and we don't want to change it. That's what denial means. But when you sleep enough, that's when you begin to reorganize the way you understand the world, and the world is not such a traumatic place. In fact, you can have that eureka, euphoric moment where you realize the truth is life is good.
You know what's deceptive, though? And I'd love both of your takes on this, is we're in such a production society, a performer society, and we base our metrics of success on more money, more power, more things that you do, things that you accomplish in the world. And because of that, we seem to assume that people who are able to perform 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day, people who sacrifice sleep in order to accomplish these sometimes apparently superhuman goals, we tend to place them as people to admire. And the number one thing that gets sacrificed for these success stories is sleep. We hear that all the time, and it's tacitly understood. But if you follow these people over the course of their careers, not just year to year, but even decade to decade, the price that they often pay for that kind of heavy work and sleeplessness for such a long time is severe. And no one really talks about that or pays attention to it. Is that something that you believe in or have found, which is we idolize the Elon Musks who are signal to noise 22 hours a day. He sleeps next to his computer for an hour.
So
And he's the guy that we emulate, and yet sleep is the last thing that this guy is known for, right?
Well, one generation ago, when I wrote my book, Lack of Sufficient Sleep Matters, Bill Clinton was the poster boy for not only sleeping 4 hours and being productive.
Right.
When Bill Clinton was a young man, he was saying, when I become the president, not if. And he was a Rhodes Scholar and one of the youngest governors, and he became one of the youngest presidents. And we remember that he had great charisma. He had all of those characteristics I described when I talked about accelerated. And he was one of the youngest presidents, and he had 2 terms, and he had the best doctors in the world monitoring his health. They had him on a statin for his cholesterol. After he finished his terms, he wrote a book and then went on a media campaign to sell his book. Always busy. And then he was the keynote speaker at the Democratic National Convention in July, or perhaps it was June. Within a month, at the end of that, what culminated his political career, within a month, he had quadruple bypass surgery and complications and would have died had he not had the kind of health care that was available to a person of his prestige. But what I'm saying is, we might have looked at him as one of the icons of this 4-hour workday and getting it all done. Now, for him, it might be a good trade, right? He's going to go down in history as he'll be remembered. Well, but if that's your legacy and that's what you choose, perhaps. But since then, his health has gone down
also
tremendously.
Cognitively. And again,
of course,
we're just citing Bill as one example. It's independent of your politics, folks. Doesn't matter by any stretch of the imagination. Bill Clinton, #winner. He did it,
exactly.
right? But cognitively too. I was actually at a event, and he was a keynote speaker, and we're looking at 2017 maybe. And again, nothing disparaging about Bill Clinton or this event, but he was clearly not the Bill that I had remembered in person. And I think it's relevant for this conversation because it was that debt to nature due him. Because if he's burning the candle from both ends for decades to accomplish what he did accomplish, something's gotta give. And it seems that the sacrifice of sleep might have been a precipitating factor in his later decline.
So if the goal is to sustain robust life, to have a sense of wellness, the kind of happiness that we see in children, we think that children are happy because they have nothing to worry about. They have as much to worry about as anyone does, right? If Susie
and
won't
even if
play
you're an
with
adult
me,
kid like me, so.
exactly. If she won't share her cookies with me,
Right.
the world's going to end. It's as much pain to them as our pains are to us. But their resilience, they can let it go because they've had sufficient sleep. And it's important to recognize that. There's one other concept I'd like to tell you and your listeners that most people are not familiar with, and it's integral to understanding the benefit of sleep. Most people are familiar with the idea of having a migraine or perhaps a hangover, where the idea is that light that is usually ordinary then becomes painful, and noise becomes painful. Now, clearly, the stimulus hasn't changed. The light is the light. But something happens to the brain in those 2 states that causes it to be extra sensitive so that things that are usually ordinary become noxious. And the idea is that it's called central sensitization. The concept is similar to what everyone knows, is that when you're thirsty, the water tastes better. And when you're hungry, food tastes better. And when you're really exhausted, laying down feels so good. The idea is negative sensitization is when things that are ordinarily just what they are become noxious. So the person becomes what I call tranky. They're tired. They start tripping, making little things, making a big thing out of nothing. and they become cranky. It's kind of like hangry, where people are angry because they're hungry. Well, the concept is that when you don't sleep enough, it alters your perception of the world, because that's what sleep is. Sleep is an altered perception of the world where you think you're understanding what's going on around you. I mean, I call it church sleep. You wake someone up and say, hey, man, wake up. I wasn't asleep. I heard everything they said. You were asleep. No, I wasn't. They're not lying to you, but they're mistaken. Many people are walking around with sleep debt and experience the world as a stressful circumstance when it's just life. And life is good. They see the negative where they could see the positive, the glass half full, half empty, the wei qi, the crisis, the opportunity, the danger. Lack of sleep alters the way we perceive the world, and sustaining sleep makes us see the life the way it really is, beautiful and wonderful.
Yeah. A few years ago, I had the equivalent of a midlife crisis. It was one of those years where everything went wrong. Relationship, family, career. We had bed bugs in the house and everyone got the flu. I felt like Job in the Bible, where why me all at once? And it took me several years post hoc to realize that, exactly like you two are describing, the single common factor and probably what precipitated a lot of this insanity and crisis, I was sleeping 3-4 hours a night. And I saw it at the time as a way of compensating for all of these crises that were all around me. But to your awesome analog there, the lights were too bright. I had a migraine that was my whole existence.
Exactly.
And small things were big problems at work. Things that used to be a breeze for me. I remember just pacing back and forth in front of my computer, almost paralyzed, because too much light had made the baby go blind. And it was a negative feedback loop because I was sleeping even less because I couldn't get anything done. I couldn't get anything done, so I was sleeping less. And I have to agree with both of you categorically, especially looking back, that I was sleep deprived. And I blame my insomnia or my lack of sleep to all of these issues. But I really honestly think the issues were caused to a large extent because for years prior to that, I was always sacrificing sleep in order to do all these other things. And it finally just imploded on me. So I could personally attest to going through everything that you've gone through. I'm sure many of our listeners can relate. And hopefully, listening to this, maybe take another look at your sleep and your sleep patterns. Worry less about all these things that are wrong in your waking life. Try to get good 8 hours of sleep tonight, tomorrow, and the next day, and give that a whirl for a few weeks. And maybe a lot of your problems outside of bed can be solved by just being horizontal for a few more hours every night and taking it easy. And on that note, Scarlet, can you tell us more about the great tools and resources used by the organization to prevent things like that from, this bald guy went through this sleep crisis. How are you keeping children from going through that, educating them, empowering them, and basically spreading this message that to us now seems kind of obvious, but it's everything 2020 hindsight, right? It's like I've been through that. Kids are the opposite. They have their entire life ahead of them. How do you instill these great habits early on and do so? From what I've seen some of your cool collateral and assets and learning materials. How are you doing all this great work?
Well, for the last 3 years, Dr. Washington and I have been pouring our hearts into talking directly to children to capture their imagination with rhymes and couplets. to put together a diverse set of children who take a journey to discover sleep magic. And the result is our children's book called Dr. Bedtime's Sleep
Great.
Magic.
And for video viewers, she's flashing it. She's going to show some awesome images. And if you're listening to us on audio too, can we put in a link for them to check out the book? And
Absolutely.
okay, all
Absolutely.
right. Because it is very, very, very gorgeous and enticing. I mean, I'm a kid at heart, so I have a bias, but I think it looks great.
Thank you.
The children want to feel powerful in a world where often they feel powerless. And we're giving them what we hope will be their sovereignty, to be able to find a safe space to sleep and go into their world of dreams. We talk to them about how dreams, that's their field of imagination. They can do whatever they want to do in their dreams. And then we tell them, guess what? You can plant dream seeds that become your future by your dreams, by going into your sacred sleeping space and letting sleep magic power you up to grow, help you heal when you're sick, help you learn better, faster, and learn in your own way. Maybe you're in school and the teacher is trying to solve a problem or have you solve a problem and you don't get it, but maybe you go to sleep and there it is. You see how it all comes together. So our book takes the children through all of these scenarios. We remind them that it's a natural thing. We have all the animals that are sleeping and finding safe spaces to power up with sleep magic. So I realized in writing this book that the benefits to sleep can be addictive. And this is what we want the children to capture.
A positive feedback as opposed to
Yes.
negative.
Yes.
That's like a core theme I'm sensing here. Like
Yes. And
bad
don't you know,
habits perpetuate worse ones, and getting the
yeah,
train on the tracks helps you keep them there, right?
absolutely. And
Yeah.
I bet you your listeners, there's someone in their family, someone that they know among their friends who's always going to bed early. And they've been, you've made fun of them.
Always.
Them.
The nappers
Yes.
get it bad
You
too.
can't pry them away from
Right.
getting that sleep magic. And I also think too, the more that we change the narrative to sleep wellness, you're going to have more and more people coming out and saying, hey, sleep is a religion for me. If I don't get my sleep, I can't function at the height that I do.
And it's
So
not being lazy. That's the point we were
absolutely.
bringing up earlier.
Yes.
If you love your sleep magic, it's not like you're lazy and you don't feel like getting anything done. You're not a slacker for sleeping
No.
more. You're actually pretty smart, right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
get what you need.
Absolutely. And in our family guide, we have a 62-page guide for families to bring sleep wellness practices into their home for their children, to help unravel some of the bad habits that they've learned, in their careers and in their childhood. And we're doing it with compassion. The way that Dr. Washington has approached discussing the issues, I think you're getting a taste of the cognitive behavioral approach that he takes. Well, that's embedded in all of our materials, in our children's book and in our family guide. We bring compassion to the adults because all of us, have been programmed against sleep and we need to be unprogrammed, and we unravel it with faith and trust that once they get a taste of it, then they'll reinforce that positive behavior. And then lastly, one of the most important pieces for us is a screening tool that we've developed for clinicians, so that when they're examining children, they're interrupting this, cycle from symptom to medicine by finding out their sleep quality. And if the poor quality sleep is associated with their illness, and then giving the parents something to redirect them to help them approach their sleep, develop a better relationship with sleep. And that's what we are bringing to the healthcare community as well.
Yeah, and kids are under fire in our society from a health and wellness point of view. Diagnostically, too. ADHD, autism. It seems our children are sicker than ever before. And I'm wondering the extent to which some of this might be precipitated by either an actual effect or impression by a simple lack of sleep and a lack of sleeping well. And if the sleep nut can be cracked for children, imploring them to sleep better, taking their phones away if necessary, there's no reason that a middle school kid or an elementary school kid should be up at 11 o'clock at night looking at YouTube videos, right? That this is an endemic problem, then maybe a lot of these other issues might find a cause, or at least find an out.
Let me try to give you some insight to the issue that beleaguers the children. One of the things that parents will notice is that there's sometimes they'll see their child get tired a little bit early, coming home from an amusement park, and they'll see that they're tired. They'll see the signs, and they put them to bed. They sleep all the way through the night. On the other hand, we often notice that if we miss their cue, and for some reason there are people around and they stay up longer than usual, something happens to the children. They become more animated. They become more talkative. They become more playful. They become more jovial. They want to play. And then when you try to put them to bed, can I have some water? Can you turn on the light? They have all kinds of, I think I'm hungry. They have all kinds of delaying techniques to prevent them from going to sleep. Well, we all see it. Well, I see it with a different perspective. I think what's happening is that once they become excited by the same chemicals that allow us to stay up, it's a primitive mechanism that if we don't go to sleep when we're supposed to, the histamine chemical that comes out makes us more alert, but it also makes us more on guard. So the children don't have the wherewithal to say, I feel a little fearful. I don't want to go to be by myself. So they come up with ways to attract your attention. But the issue is that when we stay up at night, things also become more fun. Nobody goes to the party early. The party is dead early. You go late when the party is on.
Yeah, our
and
whole
cracking.
culture is designed for staying up late.
Because it feels better. You watch those late night shows with the comedy. It's not that funny if you watch it during the day, but you get a giggle at night.
That's funny, right? And that's true.
You get a giggle at night. Everything is a little bit more fun and glamorous because we become accelerated. We all have the ability that if we push away sleep, we get this feeling of acceleration.
Yeah, it's like a second wind that, and I've been very guilty of that too. And my own life crisis. It's almost a buzz when you're devoid of sleep.
It is a buzz. It's a high.
Right.
And when children experience that high and don't have words for it, they begin to realize, so this is how adults, I want to have more of this. And they become like little addicts. Can we stay up? We don't have to.
Yeah, it's a dopamine booster shot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, I equate it to, in Europe, they give children some wine to acclimate them to what it's going to be like as an adult. No, you don't do that to children. You don't expose them to that kind of dopamine hit where it's exciting. Then they don't sleep well that night. The next morning they wake up. Teenagers that stay up at night, they get their high, they feel great, and they wake up depressed, negative, wearing black, goth, one-word answers. And you wonder, what happened to my child? And then the physicians say they normalize it. Well, it happens a lot, so it's normal. It's unhealthy, regardless. So I urge parents to hold the line. Don't let go of the rope. If you stay up, that's what adults do. But you're going to bed. And you're going to bed at X o'clock because I've seen your sign and that's how it's going to be. And then they wake up refreshed. And kids don't even know when they need to pee. Somebody's got to explain to you, why don't you go, feel better? That's because you needed to pee. You sleepy? No, lay down. You fell asleep. You feel better? That's how it
Yeah, there are
works.
two types of parents, and there's the parents who lay down that law at 8:30. You're in bed, no exceptions, and it's a tough standard to meet, especially initially because kids hate it, they
Yeah.
fight it.
Yeah. And Mookie, this is a point that we raise in our children's book or in our family guide. Many of us have been raised with very strict parents who may have even gone as far as to make bedtime a punishment, make you feel negative
Right.
toward it because they're so get in the bed. So there's a resistance connected with that. And when you're an adult, the first thing you want to do is do whatever you want to do. You want to take that freedom, get that me time, catch
Yeah.
that second win. You feel free. So you've been programmed in that way. And what we offer in our family guide is a way to hold the line, but to do it in a nurturing way.
That's a
So,
great point.
yeah,
Instead of being the super tiger helicopter mom and
yeah,
screaming and yelling and there's crying. When I say there's two types of parents, there's the vision of that one with
mhm,
the hysterical screaming and
yeah,
fretting. And then
yeah,
the other type of parent is like, oh, whatever. The
yes,
kids are up
totally,
half the night. And that begs the question of their own health and wellness. So you've got door number
absolutely,
one with a chaotic screaming household every night trying to get the kids down, or you got door number two, which is, oh, whatever, laissez-faire,
mhm,
and then the kids end up wrecked because they're
yes,
exhausted the next day and it rinses repeated. So it sounds to me like you guys are offering that magic middle of be nurturing and helpful. Lay down the law, but do it in a way where the kid knows that they're loved, they feel secure, and they get a good night's sleep.
right. And what we
Yeah.
offer to achieve that are ideas for turning bedtime into rituals of connection.
Right.
So this is a time to reframe what has gone on during the day that may have been upsetting for your child. A time to just listen. Maybe they don't want you to give you their advice. They just want to talk to you. If you
See,
start
that's
with,
gold. And I love your holistic approach. Remember, I'm saying I'm Hungarian. It's egész ségedre. It's to your wholeness. It's not just like go to sleep because it's good for you. But in this nurturing set of methodologies, it's actually quality time between kid and
yeah,
parent, which otherwise never would have existed. Because if
right.
you're screaming at your
Exactly.
kid and slamming the door shut, go to sleep, or you're letting the kid doom scroll into oblivion, there's no human touch. There's
There's
no
no
parent
connection.
child communication.
That's
And I
it.
love
Exactly.
what you guys are advocating, which is like this is a magic moment not only to get to sleep in a timely way, but for us to make a connection we otherwise would never make in
Yes.
our busy days.
Right. And a
Exactly.
connection that'll last. So
Yeah, that's
the
great.
time that the child is growing, this open door,
Yeah.
to connect will morph into greater rapport, greater understanding, and the relationship with sleep will become embedded, and all the benefits of that will last that child a lifetime. So that's the approach that we're taking.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And you don't hear much about this because when you're reading stuff and you're finding prescriptive recommendations, they're oftentimes just procedural.
Mhm.
Right.
Like get your kid to go to sleep because it's good to go to sleep. Do
Yeah.
XYZ and everything will be fine. But what's missing is that human, holistic, emotional connection
Mhm.
that you
That
Absolutely.
guys
can
are all about here. It's not just the sleep, it's the relationship between parent and child. And like the doc
exactly.
mentioned earlier, just to reiterate, it's creating a secure, nurturing an environment for kids to feel great. And sleep comes naturally in that environment. I feel secure, so I could just nod off. Mommy
Mhm.
and daddy are there, they love me, and everything's okay.
Yeah.
And it immunizes against trauma. You can imagine that a child who feels loved by their parents and they go to school and some bully says, "Well, you have the wrong kind of shoes. Those aren't cool." And they're like, "Well, why would I care about what you think? My
Yeah.
parents love me. My parents." It immunizes us. And you can imagine what it might have been like for you when you were going through that difficult time if one of your parents talked with you every evening, held your hand, hugged you, and told you how much they loved you, that would have helped to immunize you, get you, well, you know what, maybe things are okay and I can get through this all right. That's the beauty of the sacred hour before sleep, when we should reconnect with what's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to add to that is we do acknowledge that not all families have circumstances that are
I was going to bring
conducive.
that up. There isn't always mommy and daddy, so we got to be
Well,
realistic.
and there's not always a calm household, as well. And it's not always that a child will have a roof over their heads that they can call their own. I mean, let's face it, we're dealing with such a range of circumstances, in our country. And we acknowledge this by letting parents know that if they can just make the place where the child lays their head feel safe for that child, then you're doing your job.
Yeah, I
And
think that that's a great, very important point. It's like
Mhm.
nuclear family, fissionable families, fusion powered families. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter. The point is making a connection with the child and doing your best to ensure that the child feels safe and loved and
Where they
sleep.
sleep,
And
where they
sleep is almost an afterthought. It's peaceful, it's loving,
sleep.
and the kid's gonna nod off.
Yeah.
You get it. You get it, Mookie.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Mhm.
That's great. That's great. So you have the book as a resource, and I love the self-referential quality of the book
Mhm.
because it's a bedtime book, which is
Yes.
talking about the importance of the bedtime touch point, right?
Right. And it's
That's
from
great.
Dr. Bedtime, who you have on your show here, Dr.
Great.
Bedtime.
Great.
It's all
And
about the bedtime.
Great.
it's delivering superpowers for super sleepers. That's the subtitle of the book. Dr. Bedtime, Sleep Magic, Superpowers for Super Sleepers.
Awesome. Awesome.
And our family guide is also, let me just say that the children's book and the family guide are both available on Amazon,
Okay.
and they're also available at our website. We are also donating thousands of books, children's books, to community organizations, schools, and children that are in our reach, that we see as being at risk, being most at risk for stress and trauma. So we've got a program to sponsor a classroom, to sponsor a community organization, and we've also got a program at our website where you can nominate a child, nominate a classroom, nominate a community organization, and we'll donate children's books to reach that child, to give them sleep wellness during these formative years, and create these super sleepers, empower them to feel some
Yeah.
sovereignty no matter
I
what the
love Super
conditions are.
Sleeper because
Yeah.
but it's such a oxymoron. It's like you remember in like the 80s, I'm gonna take a disco nap. Remember the
Oh,
disco
yeah.
nap? And I always loved that idea of the disco nap. And it really, in a sense, embodies everything we're talking about, which is like, napping and discoing are inherently at odds. It's like icy hot. But what you've all been saying this whole time is it's really about that disco sleep, which is, you know what I mean? You're revitalizing. You're
Yes.
active when you're sleeping.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. You're
Yeah.
working. Your body is working to empower you. And I think if we're successful, we're going to be seeing generations of people who are contributing ideas that are beyond what we can even fathom, because they're going to be connected to their source of unique energy. They're going to be connected to their navigation system, so to speak, beyond the mind. They're going to be more heart-centered, because that's what you go back to when you sleep. And they're going to come forward with all kinds of solutions, to problems that we have, and because they're powered up. And I'm really hoping that we'll start hearing more from people who say, hey, I'm so much into sleep. Sleep is definitely magical. And this is what I can accomplish when I'm sleeping. This
And
is
you could
why.
have your super sleep to become a super
Yes,
person.
yes,
Exactly.
Yeah.
yes.
And part of what we're describing to people has been known forever, that sleeping well induces more peace. The expression that you described, the Hungarian expression, in there's a Mandarin expression, jiao qi, jiao shui, shenti hao, sleep early, wake up early, have good health.
Yeah. And as the bard wrote, sleep perchance to dream, which is
Yeah.
the gateway to creativity and what
Yes.
makes us uniquely human. The best things in life, things
Yes.
that we create, are intimately tied to sleep and a good
No
night's
doubt.
sleep. It's like the
Right.
gateway to the unconscious, and
Very
then the way
insightful.
our bodies heal cognitively, emotionally, and physically is sleep. And it sounds like you guys have that philosophical and medical and pragmatic foundation to that. You've got the great book, you've got the programs that you're doing, you've got the connection to the doc's practice. And we'll put links to all of this in the description so people can reach out to you for the book and for maybe even personal assistance and maybe even a visit to their school or an
Yeah.
opportunity to really disseminate this wisdom. What other kinds of things are you doing or even thinking about doing to really raise awareness and educate people?
Well, one thing that we are planning to do is actually do our own podcast. We are
Okay.
thinking of amplifying the voices that are supporting sleep wellness.
Yeah, I
Um,
could see this being an on. We've been speaking for an hour, and obviously we need to cut it, but we could be going for hours about all of these subjects, and each subtopic could be its own topic in and of itself. I
Absolutely.
think it's great.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
then we're starting to get more involved with the community organizations. There's one here in Northern California called Family Paths.
Hmm.
They're our mental health organization, and they serve over 300 families, supporting their mental health, the children and the adults in the household. And we're supporting their clinicians with our sleep wellness screening tools, the adults with our family guide, and the children with our children's book. So we'll be getting more involved, helping them incorporate the sleep wellness message in their practice there. So we're excited about that. Uh,
Yeah. And I hope this podcast helps spread the word. I'm
Thank you.
excited to help facilitate that. I think doing podcasts on your part will do that. I actually see a terrific social media campaign out of this,
yes,
the sleep hero
yes,
campaign. You already have terrific artwork in the book,
mhm,
and you've got all the messaging that you've shared. So there's a lot of opportunities for spreading the word. And if you are listening, and if you want to help, contact you guys
please
directly, right?
do.
For
Yes,
for
absolutely.
funding, for resourcing. And
Yeah.
even if you're an agency and you've got some bandwidth to help you
Mhm.
guys out to spread the word, I don't think you guys would turn that down.
Oh, no, no. We are a 501c3 foundation. So we,
Right on, which is, again, it's the support. You guys are putting in your own hours and
mhm,
taking help either financially or in terms of expertise would
yes,
be wonderful to help
we invite
spread
that.
the word. And it clearly resonated for me, and I'm sure our listeners, just in their own personal lives. I'm a parent, and I get it. If I have erred, I've erred on the side of letting the kids doom scroll themselves into oblivion, and that's on me. I wish I would have had this podcast with you 20 years ago.
Never too
and
late.
and I've had my own issues with sleep, even though my body has been telling me sleep and I sleep well. I have been depriving myself of sleep with the ostensible goal of getting stuff done. And as I illustrated, it completely short circuited in my own life. So I could give you that personal testimonial
Thank
of
you.
it going wrong. But at the same time, it's looking at the flip side, which is learn from your mistakes, be open-minded. And I think the one key takeaway here, folks, is if you can, give sleep a try. Right?
Yes.
Look at all the curatives. Look at how medicated we are as a society. There's medicine for everything. And there's all these self-help groups and influencers and programs, and not enough of them are just talking about, you know what?
Just go to bed.
Just go to bed. Just shut up. Go to bed.
Right. That's right. One of the myths I'd like to dispel right now is that no one can sleep more than they need. You can't sleep too much.
Yeah. I mean, some people will say that, some people might fall into depression and they're sleeping all day, but that's a sign of something else. It's not the problem with the sleep, right? It's in a sense recognizing how sleep is such a curative.
I could talk for a while about that, but let me just say quickly this. When people become depressed and are sleeping more, they don't look to what was going on the days and weeks before when they weren't sleeping. This is that depression is the reaction to them not getting sleep, them doing too much, and then finally actively letting go, and then they fall into depression. And the sleeping of the depression
self-regulates, right?
Exactly.
It's self-regulating.
It's saying don't get involved. Let everything go. Depression is a form of that negative central sensitization where I don't want to be bothered. I want to be left alone. It's not worth it. I need to sleep.
Yeah, and that's the one place where I can find calm and healing.
Exactly.
Which in a sense begs the question of this entire conversation, which is go to sleep.
Thank you, Mookie. This has been great.
This has been terrific. I'd love to bring you guys back, after more of the word gets out. I just want to reiterate that the resources to contact you and to get the book and to learn more are in the description. This will be available on YouTube and other video sources, and the audio will be out there everywhere as well. And comment, share, and I'm sure Scarlet and Roger would love to hear back from you. And if you have resources to share, whether it's financial or whether it's just expertise, if you want to help them put a campaign together, if you want to join the cause, if there's partnership opportunities between your own advocacy organization or your own sleep or health and wellness, I could see you guys partnering seamlessly with other groups who are advocating for especially children's health